Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. There are said to be 4 goals or aims of a human life. And those are Dharma, Karma, Artha, and Moksha. Most of you have probably heard the word Dharma and Karma. I even saw an ad on a Gap store window that said something about karma. I can't remember what it was. Yeah.
Don't steal?
No, it wasn't. It was some funny thing about clothing and good karma. I don't really remember what it was. But it was on the West Coast. I don't think they do that here. Anyway, so you may have some general idea of, or heard some stuff about what Dharma and Karma means, but tonight I'm going to talk about those terms from more of a tantric perspective. Artha, loosely translated, means wealth. And moksha means liberation or self-realization. So in the Indian traditions, Dharma, Karma, Artha, and Moksha are all said to be aims of human life, and all need to be satisfied or fulfilled or worked with in some way in order to have a fulfilling life. Not just one or the other. We're not leaving anything out. So the word Dharma has definitely been popularized. And I think that a lot of Americans of a certain ilk, those of us who go to yoga classes and such, have some idea in our mind about what Dharma means. Does anybody who hasn't been a student for a while want to say what you think Dharma means? I'm just curious.
Is it the teachings?
Yeah? That's a good answer.
Been around.
You've been around. Well, you're from California.
I was going to say, is it California?
It's cheating. Anybody have any other idea? Well, a lot of times people think Dharma means the special thing I'm supposed to be doing in life. Like, I have to find my Dharma. And it's something people in our culture, our individualistic culture, often think is very unique to them. And it's just sort of this one perfect thing they're supposed to be doing. And that one perfect thing, if they could figure out what it was, now you don't have this feeling, would bring them peace of mind, bring them success. They would never have to worry about what to do for the rest of their lives. Well, in one sense that's true, except that Dharma is not an individualized pursuit. Each person does not have a unique Dharma. We all have the same Dharma. But we express it uniquely. I mean, we all do it differently, but we all have exactly the same Dharma. When we individualistically think of Dharma, we think about it almost like a job. If I could find the right career, that would fulfill my Dharma. But Dharma is a commitment to the process of total fulfillment. In other words, enlightenment. And not to like a particular job or one particular path in life. So this is the beginning of understanding the real significance of Dharma. Dharma comes from the same root as nourishment in Sanskrit. And so that can give us the idea that when we are on a path of total fulfillment, then we are being nourished. We are finding that ultimate nourishment. So instead of looking for partial nourishment and partial fulfillment in some particular path in life that we consider to be our path, we're looking for something larger, something that's not impermanent, and that is ultimately nourishing. From the perspective of Tantra, of direct realization Tantra, Dharma is built into nature. If nature were a river, it's the direction that nature is flowing in. In this tradition, nature is called Prakriti, and it means the manifest world. Nature means everything that we see in our world. And so Dharma is really the direction in which we are going, all of us, built into our lives, already there from the moment we're born. And that direction is toward what? It's toward waking up from our ignorance about who we are and what this reality really is, and discovering our real nature. That is the river that we are made of, that we're swimming in. And then, it means that all the worrying we do about what should I do, what am I uniquely cut out for, we can put that aside, because Dharma tells us that the purpose of our life is already built in from the beginning. That we are, in the words of this particular tradition, that we are an expression of the lila. Lila means the play or the sport of the one consciousness, who creates all of these experiences of being you and being you and being you, and then has you go on this path toward discovering your limitlessness, so that these experiences of being limited are only part of a play of discovering your limitlessness. And that this is like a river, exactly, built into nature, going in a certain direction. Now, unlike a river, one of the things that Ananda Mayama always said was, no analogy is ever complete. Take what you can. She often said that because I guess people would argue, you know how people do. Not you guys, of course, but when someone uses an analogy like a river, you're thinking, but that doesn't work because... So Ananda Mayama would also cut everybody off before they even got to that place and just say, no analogy is ever complete, take what you can from this. So in the sense of a river flowing kind of inexorably, a river just keeps going in that direction. There's a lot of feeling similarity between that and this inevitable movement in our lives towards waking up. But in another sense, it's not like a river because we don't flow in one line. We go like... chasing our tail for a few lifetimes. Then we go... You're seeing people around you going into different conditions, and you have ups and downs in your life, right? That doesn't mean that you're not participating in that natural movement toward waking up. You are. Once you get to this stage of manifestation, you're participating in that. And the picture is much bigger than just the little, ups and downs that we experience. Ma also had a way of talking about that. A phrase that she often repeated, which was, does anybody want to say it?
Coming and going, the thing will be done.
Right, coming and going, the thing will be done. Coming and going means sort of going in and out of states of greater awareness. But she said that's the process. And that through that process of coming and going, coming more into understanding of our real nature, moving away from it, that the thing will be done. We will wake up. We will discover who we are, what our real nature is. Ma said about Dharma, what is Dharma? Dharma is those actions which are conducive for attaining the Supreme Self. If you want to know how to act according to Dharma, how to go along with nature, how to go along with this natural process, then choose to do actions which are in accordance with that. And you will be playing along. This is desirable for everyone, says Ma. It is the natural way of life. Now, natural can be an empty word, as we know from the supermarket shelves.
I'm not really natural.
Yeah. However, we all have a feeling for naturalness. When we are going in the way that is natural, and I would just say the way that is good, we have a feeling of goodness, we have a feeling of relaxation, we have a feeling, there is a definite feeling of going along the right way. And there is a definite feeling when in our lives we're going along a way that's creating more tension for ourselves. Or when we're doing something, because out of anger or fear or greed or something like that, any of those things. We know when we're following, if we're even a little awake, we can have a sense of when we're following our tensions, our karmas, and when we're following nature or our innate goodness or what is relaxing for us, right, in that bigger way. So when we're doing spiritual practice, it's a good thing to notice, and we do start to notice more and more the choices that we're making, and what is motivating those choices. And the interesting thing is that when we go the way of goodness, when we go the way of nature, when we go the way of God, when we go the way of our own essence, it's not an individualistic thing. We are not proclaiming our individuality doing that. See, this is a mistake that people make. Seeing Dharma as individualistic. Seeing the choices, like if I'm going to make a choice that's for freedom, that's for me, that's my way, I'm getting this feeling like taking a stand, going my way. This is all individualistic. This is just the flip side of the kind of individualism where you feel tense and upset. Now you feel tense and prideful and willful. It just feels better, that's all, right? The way of nature is always surrender of that small self, that small will, into that river. And it always feels a little scary for us in particular, because we're so used to that individualistic way of being that we can't even imagine, we can't even get in the right river. We think we're really, really stuck in this idea that, being ourselves means being self-directed. It doesn't mean being self-directed, because who is that self doing that directing? It's the same old self that's gotten you into trouble all along. It's just now propped up with a bunch of pop psychology, telling it that, you're being strong and independent and doing your thing and it's all great. Well, yes, that feels better. I can't deny that feels better. But it isn't actually the way to waking up. The way to waking up is actually learning to become sensitized to nature and learning to give up that small will and align yourself with nature. That is what the real meaning of Dharma is, and Dharma is very closely linked to surrender because of that.
Another word for the small will, would it be ego?
Well, we say that.
Oh.
Yeah. In this tradition, there's kind of two words. Well, there's one word, but it kind of means two different things. So there's a word, ahankara, which means I am feeling. The I am feeling. Right? So ahankara can be the I am feeling of this entire reality. I am. Right? That's of God, right? And then there's the ahankara, which is often translated in the text as ego. And that's that same I am, but like squished, crunched, squashed and stepped on, made into this small, tense, little self-defensive, aggressive ball. Right? And the only way to have that be released from its prison is to begin identifying with this larger self. See, if we continue the process of identifying with this small self, there's all kinds of ways to make small self feel better. Small self, and this is what psychology does, I think. It makes small self feel more competent. It makes small self feel more independent. It makes small self able to do things for itself that feel fulfilling on some level, right? And then you have a life where you are more competent in an ordinary way. And you feel that you have basically shored up your boundaries, right? And you're going along and you know how to get what you want better than you did before. It's very difficult to get out of this mindset. The only way to actually wake up and actually know who you are and have actual fulfillment is to let go of that entire apparatus that's holding that little self together and have it just flow out into this bigger self and identify with that. So one of the things that makes this tradition different from some other traditions you might have heard of is we're not trying to get rid of ego. We're not trying to get rid of the I. That wouldn't even make sense in this tradition because this whole reality is aware. So what it would we be getting rid of if we try to have some sort of, I don't even know who I am, I have no I sense. I mean, all this is just considered ridiculous in this tradition. But what we want to do is release this little I from its cage. And whatever you do to do that is Dharma. Whatever you do to do that is Dharma. So that means, in a very practical way, that all you have to do is create what I call a habitable life. And find some practice, find some way to begin to set that little I free. Right? You don't have to have any other grand project in life. We do, as I say many, many times, we do have to support ourselves. And many people have things that they really, really want to do. You know, they love things they love doing, and you should do those things. Things they're passionate about, and you should do those things. But if there's a lot of people that don't have that either. There's a lot of people who don't have the one thing that's organized in their whole lives. And the truth is that you don't have to have anything organized in your life other than waking up. You just really don't need anything else. So for those students of mine who have those kinds of worries about what should I do and who should I be, well, you already are God, and what you should do is discover that. I am God. I am on the way to discovering that. Please hire me.
1997 to 2003. That's God.
Right. From the day I was born until the present, my job has been... Yeah, but we want to be very, very practical because in order to organize your life around anything, you have to have money. You have to have a place to live. You have to have food. You'd like to have some friends. We want to have a good ordinary life too, not just dropping everything for some fantasy idea of spirituality. Right? Because all of this is happening naturally. Everything, once you start doing spiritual practice, you start doing mantra, you start meditating, you start coming to satsang, which is also practice, whatever you do. Once you start doing that, then you are participating consciously in this process, and it's just going to continue. It's already too late. You're not going to get out of it. Not that you necessarily want to, but you can just relax. You've already discovered the purpose of life. That's what Dharma means, the purpose of life, which is to wake up. Karma means activity. And there's two types of activity that we talk about. Karma means activity that is under tension. It means activity that you are compelled to repeat. And stuff like you're compelled to repeat certain emotional patterns, you're compelled to walk a certain way because your body is expressing some of your karma. You're compelled to have caffeine in the morning. You're compelled to want to have certain types of sexual fulfillment. You're compelled to want certain types of food. We're just a body of compulsions, basically, with a little bit of freedom thrown into the mix. But in this tradition, what we're doing is we're doing spiritual practice, and as we do that, our karmas start to naturally relax. So we have a bunch of patterns. Karma just means patterns moving through time, patterns of consciousness and energy repeating themselves through time. It's very, very simple to understand. The only thing that's not simple is, how long are we talking about? Well, in my view, we're talking about an infinite amount of time. Each one of you, is the result of an infinite number of causes and effects. So it's not like we're trying to understand why we have any particular pattern, because we'll never figure that out. We can explain stuff, according to our childhood, but that's such a minuscule little portion of what really created us. So those kinds of explanations are really born of ignorance. And that means we don't actually have to try to understand why we are the way we are. We don't have to figure out what to do, like in a grand sense. We don't have to have a grand mission in life. We can just do practice and live in a good, nice way, choose the way we want to live. And we don't have to figure out why we are the way we are. This whole idea of figuring out why we are the way we are is such a new phenomenon. 200 years ago, nobody really cared why they were the way they were. We're just obsessed about that because of a cultural mistake. But we will be compelled at some point to work with who we are, to actually try to relax a little bit some of those tensions that are holding us together. And those are called our karmas. So when we come in here in this particular form, only certain parts of our karma, we have like an ocean of karma that is associated with us, and only certain things are going to arise in this particular lifetime. And when things do arise, that is our chance to work with them. One of the things that happens with spiritual practice is that your karmas start to become more visible to you. So things become more difficult in a sense, because you start to see more things about yourself than you saw before. And that means you're waking up a little bit. You're gaining more clarity. Clarity is one of the big fruits of any spiritual practice. So, the beginnings of a practice can be really difficult, because suddenly all that stuff that was submerged is now rearing up and staring right back at you. But those are the karmas that you can work with in this lifetime. Now, there's a lot of people in India think that all karmas must be lived through. In other words, karmas have a certain life cycle. They arise and subside just like everything else. They're not permanent. They're part of the world of bodies and time. So a lot of people think, well, you have certain karmas and you have to satisfy those karmas before they'll go away. Well, there's two ways to satisfy karma. One is to kind of pay back everything that caused that karma in some way. So that if you come into, let's say right now, I got rid of all my debts about 10 years ago, but I still have student loan debt. And it's just kind of a mound of debt sitting there. That's like a mound of karma, right? Now, one way that I might have to deal with that mound of student loan debt is I might have to pay all of it off. And that karma may not go away until I pay every penny of it off through my own earnings. However, another thing could happen, which is that whatever caused me to create that mound of debt, I might get rid of through spiritual practice. Right? I might. I'm not saying everything happened, but it could happen that whatever tensions I had and whatever ignorance I had that made me incur that debt, and it was ignorance of what life was really about. This is actually a really great example. I've never really used this before, but I incurred that debt when I was in my PhD program. And I thought, I love academia, I'll be here forever, I'll be a professor, so it's okay that I have this debt, and I'll be able to pay it off, because I'll be a highly paid professor at some elite university, and, so what, I'll have debt. That's a mistake, because my life was already going in the way of spiritual practice. I was already initiated. I was already doing hours of practice every day. And I still had this idea that I was going to be in academia forever. And which only meant that I still hadn't fully realized who I was. What is my real role in this life? I hadn't realized that yet. I was in a state of ignorance. And also, I hadn't really dealt with the impermanence of life. Even if I hadn't been doing spiritual practice, who knows if I would have gotten an elite job? Who knows if I would have stayed there forever? Who knows what my circumstances would have been? So I could have been a lot more skillful when I was in graduate school, and I didn't really need all that money. I could have not incurred at least some of that debt, right? So now I have that debt because of my own ignorance, basically, which is basically how karma comes about. And so I could either pay off every penny, or I could I could do enough practice that ignorance that caused that would really unwind to the degree where the world would respond in some way, in some other way that debt would get taken care of. So this is how we do what's called stepping out of our fate, stepping out of our karma. We all come in here with like a certain amount of fate. Fate is another way of saying karma, like patterns that seem relatively fixed or that are difficult to get out of. And then we can either live through them until they unwind and we wise up, or we can do practice and then we get responded to and those things get taken care of. And either way, we step out of the karma that we came in here with. And what do we have instead of that karma? We have what's called kriya. Kriya. Kriya also means activity, but it means free activity, spontaneous activity. Activity that's not bound to repeat itself. And this is the state of the enlightened person, is they're in this state of kriya. They are acting, they're doing stuff just like you and I are. Maybe they have regular jobs, but they're not bound by it. They're not entangled in fate anymore. And this is really one way of talking about the goal of the practice. In this practice, we're moving from karma to kriya, to whatever extent we can in this particular lifetime. None of us are going to do it all in one lifetime. I'm certainly not. But we're doing what we can. Right? So then Artha is wealth. And I'm not going to say that much about it, only to say that it expresses to me the practicality again of the tradition, where we recognize that we're not rejecting the everyday world, we're not rejecting making money, we're not rejecting having possessions, because all of those things are also made by God. I mean, there's no reason to separate those things out and single them out for any particular finger wagging. However, I love to refer to what the real meaning of wealth is to me. And the real meaning of wealth to me is being in a position in life where you have the opportunity to give everything away. That to me is the ultimate wealth. And I have always wanted that in my life. I have always wanted to be in a position where I could give everything away. I really love now that, even though I'm tired sometimes, I really love that I'm working 12 hours a day, giving stuff away, doing stuff for students, doing stuff for Jayakula. Sometimes I also help this human rights organization raise money for their causes. Even though it's tiring sometimes, I just love that I get to do that. When I was younger, I tried to explain once to a friend what it was that I really wanted, and I said, well, I just want to be used up. And it wasn't like a negative thing. It wasn't like I have low self-esteem or something. Like anybody who knows me knows I don't have low self-esteem. But it's that feeling of just like there's so much in here and I just want to give it all away. And to me, being able to do practice in any lifetime, having a teacher and having a practice, even if you're not, a yogi bogi, even if you're not that into it, even if you only do 20 minutes or an hour of practice a day and go to a satsang now and then, that to me is like, wow, What a great lifetime. You have teachings, you have the opportunity to practice, to discover who you are. What an amazing lifetime! Right? That to me is wealth. Artha. And then the fourth aim of human life is moksha. Moksha means self-realization. It's just another word for self-realization, and it's the word that's used most often in the tantric tradition. And in this tradition, the kind of most desirable form of moksha is called jivan mukti, which means liberated in life. So jivan mukti means you become realized, which as Ma says, only means that you know yourself. You know really who you are, really, actually, not just a guess, not just a belief, not just a collection of pop psychology slogans. You actually know who you are. You actually know what this reality is. That's self-realization. And she said that just means that you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere to discover that, and you don't have to go anywhere when you discover it. Because one of the things you discover is there's nowhere to go. And I won't go into that right now because I think it'll just cause steam to come out of the top of people's heads. But not in anger, just in like, too much. However, jivan mukti means liberated in life. It means that you can enjoy this life. My Dzogchen teacher says, we realize and we enjoy. It's very, very simple. You don't have to reject anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So jivan mukti means that you can just continue to be wherever you are and you're realized, and then wherever you are, whatever you do, even if you do nothing, or even if you are very busy, like a lot of realized people are very busy, then whatever you do, whatever you choose to do will benefit other people. You don't even have to try. So the other thing I want to say about moksha is that it isn't some far-off, distant apocalypse. It's not like you're slogging along, doing your thing, being miserable and suffering all the time, and having fun very occasionally. And then, 75,000 lifetimes from now, you finally get realized and it's all over. Moksha, or self-realization, happens incrementally. You wake up incrementally. The minute you start doing practice every day, you start waking up. And your experience starts to change. So this is, the only thing that really keeps us going. If we had to wait until, one point, 75,000 lifetimes from now, everyone would stop practicing immediately, including me. But the reason why this is because everything that we are and everything that we're working with is already that one consciousness and energy, that one self. And that wisdom is always available to us in everything that we do. So the minute we start turning our mind and our actions toward waking up, we get responded to, and we begin to receive wisdom, and we begin to understand ourselves a little bit better, day by day as it goes along. And then every once in a while we have some big aha moment where, the thing that we call a spiritual experience, but actually it's all a spiritual experience. Every little bit of wisdom that we gain is a spiritual experience. Every little bit of ignorance that we encounter and see for what it is a spiritual experience. Every time we just feel a little more relaxed and smooth in our lives, it's a spiritual experience. Every time we give up a little bit of that individualistic will, it's a spiritual experience of more intimacy and connection. So it happens like that incrementally, and it's important to recognize that if you are doing practice every day, that you are becoming realized every single day. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.